Okay, now the peripheral nervous system is divided. Okay, if as we know, the central nervous system, like the peripheral nervous system, again it is divided into two parts. Okay, it can be divided. It is composed into two parts: the cranial nerve and the spinal nerve. Okay, remember, peripheral nervous system again divided into cranial nerve and the spinal nerve. So this cranial nerve and spinal nerve, what are the difference between the two? That is a question which can arise. Now, what is the difference between the cranial nerve and the spinal nerve? Point number one, the difference is cranial nerve. Okay, five part of the cranial nerve, they come out of the brain region. They are come out of the brain. Remember that. The difference between the cranial nerve and the spinal nerve, five part of the cranial nerves come out of the brain. Okay, whereas in spinal nerve, 31 parts of the nerve come out from the spinal cords. I repeat again, in spinal nerve, 31 parts of the spinal nerve come out from the spinal cord. So now the difference is that in cranial nerve, most of them they come out from the brain. Okay, but in the spinal nerve, most of them they come from the spinal cord. And the cranial nerve, most of them they are in the head region. That means in your hair, in their brain region. Okay, they are in the brain region. But this spinal nerve, is they mostly come out from the spinal cord, they are mostly below the head region. That means in your shoulder region, like in your backbone region, right? They are in this region. They are below the head region. Now, the difference between the cranial nerve and the spinal nerve is that cranial nerve, most of them come out from the brain, whereas spinal nerve, most of them come from the spinal cord. Cranial nerve, most of them they are in the head region, brain region, whereas the cranial nerve, most of them are in the below the head region. Let's go to next. Now we're going to study about the structure of a neuron. What are neurons? As we all know, they are the functional and the structural units of a nervous system. And even these neurons, they are also one types of cells. Now, as we say neurons are a cell or a one type of cell, we all know that every cell consists of our organelles, right? Cell organelles are present. Like one cell, that particular cell, it is going to consist of mitochondria, it is going to consist of cytoplasm, it is going to consist of ribulose, it is going to consist of different cell organelles, okay? Leucoplasts and so they're going to consist all of those. So even neurons, they are also one type of cells. That means they will need to contain all of these cell organelles. So now a question which arises is that where are all these cell organelles present in the neuron? See, we have the axon, that is where, like, the main place where the electrical impulse passes through. But where do these cell organelles is present? Now, if there is a question like that, then you can simply answer that they are present in the cell body. Now, one thing which I would like to make clear is that this neuron, it can be divided into four parts. I repeat again, neurons can be divided into four parts. Number one, dendrites. Remember, dendrites. This part, this do you know this hairy part? This hairy part, the part which is hairy, like this part, we call it this hairy part, we call it the dendrites. Okay. Secondly, we have the cell body and the axon and the synapse. Synapse is exactly not a part of the neuron, but then yeah, it is included. So now, what are the dendrites? See, dendrites, as I told, is the hairy part. Now the information is that they receive the information from another cell. Okay, they receive the information. Okay, if you are touching a hot substance, the information that you are touching a hot substance will be received by the neurons. Through what? Through the dendrites. Okay, after they receive the dendrites, okay, they will send the message to the cell body. That's it. Very easy. What is the thing which dendrites do? They receive information from other cell and they send information to the cell body. Okay. Now the second part is the cell body. Now what do the cell body do? The cell body, what they do is that it's very simple. All the cell organelles, okay, all the cell organelles like the nucleus, the mitochondria, and the leucoplasts, or so all the cell organelles in the neurons are there in the cell body. Okay, the cell body is this part. See, this part, if you call this the red part, it is the cell body. Okay, this cell body contains, okay, they contains all the cell organelles of the neurons. Secondly, what is the axon? Axon is this yellow part. If you see, the yellow part is the axon. And now what is the function of the axon? The axon, the axon is that the function of the axon is that when the information comes from the dendrites, and after that the cell body, and after that from the cell body the information are passes through the axon. Okay, they are transferred through the axon. Okay, and then to the nerve ending, then it is passed on to the next neurons. Okay, so the neurons are the one who conduct or take are the medium through which all this information are processed through from the cell body. Okay, and lastly we have a synapse. Now a question arises, what is a synapse? A synapse, see, it is very easy. After one neurons is there, another neurons will be there. After the neurons there will be another neurons. Okay, see, there is one neurons here, that means after this neuron there will be one neuron again here. Okay, this is neuron, so after this neuron there will be one neuron here. After there's one neuron there will be another neuron here. So different form of neurons, many neurons combining together form the nervous system, as we said. So now after the information is processed after the axon, okay, and to the nerve ending, the information will be passed again to the next neuron. Okay, and these two neurons, okay, corresponding, or the true between these two consecutive neurons, okay, there is a little space. Okay, after one neuron there will be one neuron again. Okay, but then there between the two consecutive neuron there is a very little space. Okay, there is a very small space between two consecutive neurons, and that particular space we call it synapse. That's it. Too easy. Now let's go to the next slides. Now, as we know, the information are transferred in the nervous system in the form of an electrical impulse. Okay, how do they transfer? We all know an electrical impulse. What is an electrical impulse? I don't have to explain it. How do they transfer? Just screenshot these slides, know it and remember it. This is the slides. Okay, it will help you a lot. This is a dendrites. If you see this flowchart, it will help you. You don't have to memorize it long and long, learn all of those things. Just remember the flowchart. You can construct your own sentences after I teach you how to give a very impressive answer. Okay, just remember this. First thing which you see is the dendrite. That means the information is received by the dendrites, and after that what did you see? The cell body. From the dendrites it is passed on to the cell body, and those information in the cell body, they are conducted away with the help of what? Axon. And after that it goes to the nerve ending, and from the nerve ending it is passed on to the next nerve through the synapse as an electrical impulse. It's as easy as that. You just screenshot this one, and it is going to help you a lot in order to memorize the answer. Dendrite, cell body, axon, nerve ending. That's all. And one thing, what is a synapse? That one, don't forget, they might ask in the exam. So you try to remember, a synapse is the very small gap between two consecutive neurons. Now, as we said, neurons. There are different types of boys also, right? So if you go to school, if you go a doctor, there are different types of doctors. There are different types of engineers. There are different types of teacher. Likewise, even in neurons, there are different types of neurons. We have the sensory neurons, associative neurons, and the motor neurons. Okay. So what are sensory neurons? Sensory neurons are the one who receive the information. Okay. There is a stimulus. We all know what a stimulus is. I already explained to you. Okay. The one due to which we receive the information, like when you touch a hot substances and you take your hand away, that particular hot substance is the stimulus, or it can, so stimulus can differ in different place, in different condition, in different time, and that stimulus, okay, the one who receive the one who convey the stimulus, okay, and the one who receive it, and the one who receive the information, that one they are called the sensory neurons. Okay, and who are the associative neurons? They are the one who interpret the stimulus. And who do we call the motor neuron? The motor neuron are the one who convey information to the effector. So who are the effector? Yesterday I already explained, the one who do the action. Like when you touch a hot substance, your hand is flying away, your hand is the effector. Okay, when you try to walk, your leg is walking. Okay, your leg is the one who do the action. When you're walking, your leg is the effector. So after going through the after the information is passed on to the brain, and when it come back again, okay, and the one, okay, the particular neuron who give information, okay, to the effector, okay, the one who are going to do the action, they are called the motor neurons. Okay, let's go to the next. Okay, this is not important, just cut it. You don't have to learn these things, they are not very necessary. You can cut it. I prepare a slide here, but then I think it is not that important. It is out of your syllabus, and this thing also is not necessary. Okay, let's see, voluntary and involuntary action. Now, what are nervous action? See, any action that you perform due to the nervous system, okay, is called the nervous action. When you touch a hot substance, due to the nervous system, the information will be given to your hand, and automatically you will take it out. You will, once you want to walk, you will think it, okay, and the information that you want to walk will be given, okay, that or you need to walk is given. And when you walk, all the information, like you need to go forward, you need to go forward, okay, like there is a coordination between your right hand and your leg hand, right, your leg like this. There is a coordination between your right leg and your leg. If there is no coordination between your right leg and your leg, then you won't be able to walk. So this is bring about by your by your nervous system, okay, that is due to your nervous system. And that particular action of walking, it is due to the nervous system, and that is why it is a nervous action, okay. All the action due to the nervous system, they are called nervous action, okay. This nervous action, okay, the action due to the nervous system, we can classify into voluntary and involuntary and reflex action. I already explained it to you yesterday. A voluntary action is all those which we perform voluntarily, okay, and involuntary is which we perform, which are automatically, and they are done without our awareness, okay. And reflex action is a voluntary action, but it is sudden, it happens suddenly, okay. Now let us see the difference between a voluntary action and the involuntary action, okay. Now voluntary action, it is mainly controlled by the cerebrum, okay. They are mainly controlled by cerebrum. And involuntary action, they are mainly controlled by the medulla or oblongata. Now yesterday, it is different from this, okay. If you find it difficult to memorize this one, you can simply memorize like voluntary action, they are controlled by the cerebellum, and involuntary action, they are controlled by the midbrain and the hipbrain. You can simply run with it. Now the speed, let us go to the speed. Voluntary action, the speed, it is very slow, whereas involuntary action, it is very fast. That's all. What is the nervous pathway? Okay, the nervous pathway means since the start it receives the information and it goes to the brain and it comes back, all those how it goes from the receptor till it goes again to the receptor, I mean the effector, that pathway it follows, that is called the nervous pathway, okay. Now what is the nervous pathway of voluntary action? Okay, so for voluntary action, firstly the receptor receives the information, and after that it goes to the spinal cord, then the cerebrum, then spinal cord, then effector, then come back to the spinal cord, then the effector. That is the nervous pathway of the voluntary action. Now you just have to learn this flowchart. It is very easy. This flowchart is going to be very helpful for you. Like you don't have to learn in detail. Like there is many things you need to learn in science, and the one which is going to help you is you just have to make a flowchart, make a mind map, and they are going to help you a lot. Involuntary action. What is the nervous pathway of the involuntary action? The nervous pathway of an involuntary action is that firstly they receive receptor, and after the spinal cord, then it goes to the medulla oblongata, that is the brain, and after that it comes back to the spinal cord and the effector. Now the thing which is similar here is that both involuntary action and involuntary action, the brain is involved and the spinal cord is also involved. Both the spinal cord and the brain is involved. Now the example of voluntary action is speaking, walking, writing, and involuntary action is heartbeat. Okay, why is heartbeat included in involuntary action? This is because you can't control your heartbeat, right? If you want your heartbeat to beat 1000 times per minute, you won't be able to let it beat your heartbeat. Like you can't control it, is out of your control. And even if you sleep, even if you don't think, also your heart will still beat. That is why it is called involuntary action. But at the same time, involuntary action is like speaking. Like if you don't want to speak, you don't speak. If you want to speak, you speak. Okay, if you say, let me not speak, then you don't speak. And if you don't think, then you don't know what to speak, right? That is why it is voluntary action. Okay, only once you want, you speak. Only once you don't want, you don't speak. But involuntary, whether you want or you don't want, you still continues. That is called the involuntary action. Like the blinking of your eyes, if you don't want to blink your eyes also, it will still blink. That is involuntary, you can't control it. Okay, now you remember the nervous pathway, and the difference are very many, and the similarities can also be asked in your board exam. They never ask till now, they don't ask till now in their board exam, but they can be asked, okay, because they always don't repeat the question. So if they ask the similarities between voluntary action and involuntary action, it is that in both the process, the brain and the spinal cord are both involved. Okay, in voluntary action, the brain and the spinal cord is involved. In involuntary, the brain and the spinal cord is involved. In both process, the brain and the spinal cord is involved. That is the similarities between voluntary action and the involuntary action. Now let's go to the third type of nervous action. We already studied about the voluntary and the involuntary. Now let's go to the reflex action. Now before I tell you reflex action, you all know now, reflex action is an automatic and rapid response to a stimulus. Okay, accidentally if you touch a hot substance, before you even know, your hand will directly fly away. That is the reflex action. Like accidentally if you touch a sharp substances, just before you know, your hand will be flying away from sharp substances. That is a reflex action. Okay, And now this reflex action have a involuntary action. Okay, involuntary action happens automatically. Even reflex action happens automatically, but there is a so now both of them are involuntary action. So why do we need to keep reflex action separately? There is a question which can arise. Now if you said what is the difference between a reflex action and an involuntary action, the difference is that reflex action, yes, of course it is an involuntary action, but then when it comes to reflex action, it is always a rapid response. Okay, rapid response, and it occurs in emergency situation. But in involuntary action, it is not occurring in, it is not an it is not an emergency response or a fast or a unexpected response. Okay, it is not an emergency. It doesn't happen only in emergency situation. See, the beating of your heart or the blinking of your eyes, they are not happening emergency, they always happen every time. They are regular, they happen regularly, right? In the regular process, like your heart always beat, your eyes always blink. Okay, they never happen in emergency situation only, they always happen. But reflex action, they don't happen, they always doesn't happen. Okay, they always doesn't happen, they happen only once in a while, only in emergency situation. That is one difference. And the second difference is that in reflex action, okay, reflex action, they are and although they are involuntary action, okay, they are automatic. I mean, they are, do you know this rapid response? They are rapid response, they are rapid, very rapid response and unexpected response. You should always keep in your mind that one when it comes to reflex action. And now how do reflex action happens? Firstly, the stimulus, you all know, and after the stimulus it is received by the, you know, the receptor, that is any of the sense organ. Like if there is hot substance, your hand is touching the hot substance, and that means your hand is the receptor. Okay, the receptor. And after your hand receive it, and then it will go to the sensory neurons. After the sensory neurons, it will go to the spinal cord, and after the spinal cord, it will go to the motor neurons, and after that it will go to the effector, and the response will start to come out. Now from here we see that no brain is involved. See, we don't find medulla, we don't find this cerebellum, or we don't find any of this thing. Now we find again one difference between the involuntary action and the reflex action. That is, in reflex action, no brain is involved. Brain is not involved. Human brain is not involved. Only spinal cord is involved in reflex action. But whereas in involuntary action, there is brain involved. Now the difference is that in reflex action, only spinal cord is involved and no brain is involved. Okay, only spinal cord. Reflex action, only spinal cord. I repeat again, reflex action, only spinal cord. But then in involuntary, brain and spinal cord. In involuntary, brain is involved, spinal cord also involved. In involuntary, brain and spinal cord. Involuntary, brain and spinal cord. Involuntary, brain and spinal cord. Whereas voluntary, spinal cord only. Reflex, spinal cord only. Reflex, spinal cord only. Reflex, spinal cord only. Involuntary, only both brain and spinal cord. So now that is the difference. And now what is the similarity? Both of them are involuntary action. Both of them are involuntary action. Now and all this total pathway, we call it the reflex arc. You screenshot this, I will wait for you. This is the flow chart where you will be able to understand it very easily, the reflex action. Okay, I hope you finish the noting down. See, very important points to take note. This one you finish taking the screenshot. And now we're going to go to the reflex arc. What is a reflex arc? Reflex arc is the pathway which nerve impulse travel to during the reflex action. See, during the reflex action, firstly it is receive from the stimulus, it goes to the receptor, to the sensory neurons, then the spinal cords, then the motor neurons, to the effectors, then the response. And all of this pathway, okay, all of this pathway through the impulse travel, that means the electrical impulse, the information travel. Okay, all the pathway kha reflex arc dong thấy nó đi information in hi lampu ya ro hai po po khamo. That is all the pathway, that is called the reflex arc. So it's very easy. Reflex arc is all the pathway that the impulse travel during the reflex action. Now a question can arise: what is the difference between a reflex arc and what is the difference between a reflex action? The difference between a reflex arc and reflex action is that reflex action is the automatic and rapid response to stimulus, whereas in the same time reflex arc is the pathway which nerve impulse travels during the reflex action. So this is a flowchart. Try to remember it. Okay, this is help you all this pathway. So now the difference, voluntary action, involuntary action, reflex action, these are the difference. Okay, you will be able to, see the difference between, the difference between involuntary and reflex action. Involuntary action, they do not need thinking and they are performed unknowingly, right? But in reflex action, it is a rapid automatic response to a stimulus. Okay, in involuntary action they are controlled by the brain, whereas the reflex action they are controlled by the reflex action. Then involuntary, it is fast, but then reflex action is sudden and fast. Okay, now that is the difference. Very important point which I forget to mention. Involuntary is also fast, reflex action is also fast, but then reflex action, the difference is that it occurs suddenly. The difference between reflex action and involuntary action is that both of them occurs very fast. Okay, both of them are involuntary, but then involuntary is only fast, but whereas reflex action is fast, at the same time it is also sudden. So give a screenshot to this. This is very important. Okay, now you give a screenshot to this. I won't be able to explain it. I will not explain it. This one, it is not that important, so you read it by yourself through this flowchart. Look at your textbook, then you will learn it. And now next time, this is the structure of the brain. Okay, now I will not explain this also. In the structure of the brain, it is written in your textbook. It is very easy, but then like your textbook is a bit confusing, so I take out and simplify and take out all these points. Okay, these 4 points I take it out. Give a screenshot to this. You give a screenshot to this. You can go through the points, and after that you can go through your textbook again, then you can easily understand. Okay, now when you write a note on the structure of the brain, do not forget to mention these 4 points which I have taken out. And if you mention these 4 points, you will be able to get 4 out of 4. These are the 4 important points when we are talking about the structure of a brain. Okay, these are the 4 important points. If you want, you can learn all of this and you can add some more to it. That's all. Now I don't have time to explain how the structure of the brain is, so enough. You just screenshot this. You try to read your textbook. If you have any confusion, you can ask me. Okay, these are the main points, the simplified points which I take out from that book. Now the structure of the brain. Now as I said, these are the structure of the brain. And one thing which you need to include is even this. But then, okay, I will this one I will teach you in the next live class. Okay, in the next class tomorrow. Okay, everyone, have a nice time, and if you have any doubt, you can clarify to me. Have a nice time.